Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome Tracy Gapin. He's a urologist, and today's Kevin MD article is your medical career a golden cage? Tracy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. Glad to be with you today.
All right. So we'll talk about your article in a little bit, but briefly share your story and journey first.
Yeah, sure. So I like to joke that I'm a recovering urologist. So I spent 25 plus years in traditional medicine, running a very busy surgical practice. I did robotic surgery, prostate cancer, you name it, really a very high volume urology practice. About halfway through, hit a wall that so many doctors experience. It wasn't just burnout, it was just being miserable. I was in poor health, didn't like who I was, didn't like what I was doing, and it was really affecting me. Found the entire new world, Kevin, of precision performance medicine, I call it, which is really, it's optimization, it's epigenetics, it's functional medicine, it's hormones, peptides, longevity, all of this amazing science that they don't teach us in medical school. And I really recognize, Kevin, that I'm an entrepreneur stuck in a doctor's body as well. And so I built a business around it. And I jumped off that figurative cliff in 2020 and launched Gapin Institute, where I help high-performing leaders feel better, live better, lead better now. And I got to tell you, Kevin, I freaking love what I do now, and I could not say that for over 2 decades.
I've talked to so many doctors on this podcast, and they write on my site. You mentioned that doctors, sometimes they have entrepreneurs trapped in that body, right? So was there an inciting event that caused you to jump out of that shell and into what you're doing now? Or was it just a gradual buildup of frustration of traditional clinical practice?
Yeah, I hit a health scare where I was 40 years old, so this was 13 years ago, and I'm miserable. My wife and I are about to have our first son, and I was prompted by my wife to go for a physical. We're awful with seeing doctors ourselves, and I'm 30 pounds overweight. My cholesterol numbers were terrible. My liver enzymes weren't great. My creatinine was 1.4, and I was very unhealthy. I was stressed out, felt like crap, didn't like who I was, what I was doing, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And here I am, and for those of you listening, air quotes, the men's health expert urologist here, and I didn't have a clue what the hell to do. And so that got me diving down rabbit hole after rabbit hole of this whole other world of medicine that they don't teach us. And I'll tell you, Kevin, at that point I was ready to just do something entirely different, financial services, like completely leave medicine because I was so unhappy. But I found that I could actually still practice medicine, but in a way that I loved and honored who I really am and what I'm passionate about. And that was really the big trigger for me, was finding that there are other ways of practicing medicine that you can actually enjoy.
Now, you share more about your story in your Kevin MD article. Is your medical career a golden cage? For those of you who get a chance to read your article, tell us what it's about.
Thanks so much. So, I look at the mindset of how I was stuck. I was stuck in this surgical practice, making great money, and I call it the golden handcuffs, where you become accustomed to the lifestyle that is supported by that income, so you could never even imagine leaving. But are you truly loving what you do? Can you imagine doing that for the rest of your life? If not, then what I say is there's a way to escape that cage and actually build a practice and a life that you love. And you have to, first of all, get into the mindset shift of that you're not trapped, that there is a way out, and that this practice that you're in for a lot of doctors is a cage. But I talk about, and I help train doctors now, how do you get out of that cage?
Now, what are some techniques to get out of that cage? A lot of doctors, especially when they're just coming out of residency, they have hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. It's not always easy leaving
That's
the
right.
security of a stable paycheck and escape that cage.
Sure. Yeah. It starts with, finding what do you love, what are you really passionate about, what interests you and excites you that you will want to, commit to for the long term. And if it's not your practice, then take a deep soul-searching look into yourself and find out what is that you love. And for me, it's all about, I build leaders now. I think of myself, peak performance is like being the best dad that I can be. Like I'm a father first. And so everything I do is how can I help myself be the best dad? And it comes back to your health. It comes back to nutrition and hormones and gut health and sleep and all the stuff they don't teach us, right? And so for doctors out there listening, first find what are you passionate about? And I promise you can build a business around that. And I don't ever suggest any doctor jump off a cliff and leave your practice and then financially, you're screwed. I don't suggest that at all. I talk about a bridge model where you can add cash-based services to your existing practice, whatever your specialty is, and start to get some momentum, get some experience. How do I be an entrepreneur? How do I sell? How do I offer true value and provide service. And then you could start to build upon that, and it builds momentum until you're finally ready. Like I was. It was years and years of planning and preparation before I finally jumped off that cliff. And I knew when I jumped off that cliff that my parachute was going to open because I was prepared for that. So I'm not at all suggesting doctors just jump and leave their practice.
So tell us a little bit more about that transition period. You were
Yeah.
a dissatisfied urologist, you had a young family, your health wasn't as good, and then you
Yeah.
talk about these years of a transition period where you're trying to define your passion and figuring out how to transition into what you're doing now. Tell us about those years and how you learned to even make that transition.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time in business training, business courses, masterminds, and mentorship to really learn how to be an entrepreneur. And it's a very different mindset. So, and I actually wrote a book that will be published next year about the mindset of shifting from a doctor to a CEO mentality. You have to think of yourself as a leader of a team, of a business, not as the practitioner, not as the clinician necessarily focused on just patient care. There's a lot more to it than that. But it starts with really what's the value you're providing, what's the service you're providing, who's your avatar, which is a word for who is the exact ideal client that you're trying to serve. And you want to get crystal clear about who that person is and what are their real fears and challenges. What's their bleeding neck? You know, the real thing that they will actually seek care for. What would they pay for? Because in most of us, you know, in our insurance-based practice, we get sent patients, right?
Yeah.
Blue Cross, Medicare, they're going to send you patients. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to actually provide value, provide service, and justify why people should come to you. And so it's a very different perspective of you have to provide value and you have to identify what's the pain point you're solving and how can you do that better than anyone else. And so there's a lot of sales and marketing and business development, and really all of that is founded on leadership skills and personal development. And, you know, I learned, Kevin, on a personal front that I had like a lot of doctors. I had an awful childhood. I had some trauma. I had some abuse. And I chose to become a doctor in fourth grade. Now I realize out of fear, out of the need for love and acceptance and you know, achievement, success is how you get acceptance by your parents, for example. And being a doctor perpetuates that trauma of it's never good enough. You have to keep grinding, work harder, and sacrifice yourself, neglect yourself for the sake of your patients, but you're always chasing that dangling carrot that you can never reach. And now what I do is I actually focus on what do I love to do? What am I passionate about? And I actually get to come at it from a very different angle. And so to answer your question, it starts with identifying who is the person you want to serve and what's the problem you're trying to solve.
Sometimes I talk to physicians, and when they transition outside of clinical practice, there is a feeling sometimes of guilt to their patients and to their colleagues that
Yeah.
they're going to let them down because they may not be able to see them anymore, or colleagues sometimes ask them, you know, you did all this training only to transition outside of what you trained for. Did you have any feelings of those guilt?
Yeah, great question. I have zero guilt. So first of all, but I hear that a lot. I talk to a lot of doctors as well who have the same issue, and I look at it as everything you've done, you're honoring and you're leveraging it. It's a stepping stone. It's who you are. It's, you know, my experience as a surgeon, as you know, doing robotic surgery and treating prostate cancer, treating tens of thousands of patients. That made me who I am, and I bring that experience to what I do now. So when we talk about, you know, my work at Gapin Institute and Peak Launch and you know how I serve clients, I take that experience. I'm still using it, but in a very different way that I can actually enjoy and provide value from. So I don't feel guilty about that at all. I feel like I'm providing a higher level service now while still honoring me. And I think that doctors, we are notorious for neglecting ourselves and sacrificing ourselves for the sake of everyone else. It's time to put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as you know, in medicine, in general, the culture clings to tradition. So when
Yeah.
you transition into what you're doing now, what kind of
Yeah.
response did you get from your colleagues?
That's funny, Kevin. They all thought I was batshit crazy at first when I first talked about leaving, and I'm talking about, you know, epigenetics and hormones and longevity and gut health and sleep, and they're all like, "What the hell? What are you talking about? What? Why?" They couldn't understand the concept that I'm a urologist and treating kidney stones and prostate cancer and doing vasectomies until suddenly I'm doing this, and people and my colleagues thought I was absolutely crazy. Now, years later, they're coming to me. Many of them have come to me. How did you make that transition? How did you do that? And what's it like on the other side? And yeah, now they're starting to recognize that there is a path forward. And so I think my message to any doc out there who is still stuck in that insurance, traditional world, that there is a path forward. You can do it. It's a slow path. You want to do it safely. I'm not gonna suggest that it was an easy path. It was a process of iteration and refinement. And every day I'd try something a little different and tweak and you test and you pivot and iterate. And I like to think you're either winning or you're learning kind of concept. And that's how you find success.
Now, tell us the type of physician clients who come to you for help. Tell us the stories that they tell you about what it's like to practice in a traditional insurance-based model.
Yeah. So I have a neurologist in New York. I have a rheumatologist in California. I have a urologist in Texas. I have a nurse practitioner, actually, who's in Georgia. They all have the same complaints, and that is that they are burned out, they're broken, they're frustrated, they're overworked. They're making good money. Money is not the problem. It's the time. It's the freedom of time and the freedom of impact that I think doctors lose. The money part's not the problem. And they're stuck. They don't know how to get out, but they don't find fulfillment in what they're doing anymore, and they don't even know how to get out. How do I find a new world? And it seems insurmountable. Very, very common that jump. That other world, this world that I'm in now of optimization, cash-based world. There are a lot of charlatans. There are a lot of influencers who act like they know what they're doing and act like they're smarter, better than you. I like to think of it this way, Kevin. Any of us who are doctors, like, just to become a doctor, think of how hard that was. Think of what we had to go, all the shit we had to go through. You've already succeeded. Like we've already done the hardest possible thing you could possibly do, and that's becoming a doctor. This next step is easy. But it's all the mindset. You have to be willing to commit to it and own it and follow your passion and heart. That's the biggest part of it, dude. Because for me in the beginning, I was negative, I was skeptical, I was resistant, I was frustrated. That was the pivot for me, was believing that I can do it. Yeah.
So tell us what your life is like now. I think we're very similar age. You alluded to earlier in your early 50s. Yeah. Now you're running this practice that is fulfilling your passion. Tell us how that's impacted your health and your career satisfaction.
Oh my gosh. So I love what I do. I'll echo that again. I get to work out when I want to. I get to travel when I want to. We're taking literally three ski trips this year with my family because my son's now, not only is he a golfer, he's addicted to skiing. He has golf tournaments around the world. He's a high-level golfer. I get to travel with him whenever I want to, whenever I need to, and I have that freedom of time. I have a team. I have 2 PAs. I have 24 employees total, but I have 2 PAs. I have a doctor working with me. I have 4 functional medicine trained coaches. I have a concierge. I have a full-time pharmacy team. I have client care coordinators. We built a program. We have a client-facing app. And I'm now training other doctors as well through my Peak Launch Institute of how do doctors make the same transition I've made as well. So I'm spending some time with Peak Launch Institute as well, probably about 80% on the core business Peak Launch and 20% on Peak Launch Institute right now. I see 2 patients. And that's by choice. I have my team and I work with them. We review cases together. But when I'm in an exam room, I feel trapped. I feel like I can have such a bigger impact, and I find it so much more fulfilling to train my team and reach more people through creating content and doing keynotes and stages and webinars, and how could I share content out there. So I spend a lot of time on content creation, business development, leadership stuff. I have time freedom now, financial. I'm doing better than I was in urology, believe it or not. So there definitely is a path forward. That's my life. Patients who want to see me, they pay a lot of money to see me personally. Otherwise, they enroll in our programs knowing they're seeing my team, but they know that I'm behind the curtain reviewing every lab, every protocol, every test. And if there's a question, I'm happy to jump on calls with clients. But they're clients, not patients. That's really a key distinction here for us. And yeah, it's built around my passion and what I love. So I tell doctors, if you want to keep seeing patients, if that's what you love to do, hell yeah, do it. But hire people to help you. So I have 6 VAs. These virtual assistants, VAs, are in the Philippines. They speak perfect English. I have 1 to help me with accounting, 1 to help me with clinical work, 1 to help me with patient outreach, 1 with pharmacy, 1 with content, 1 with graphic design, stuff like that. Each one of them, they're $8 an hour, and they do amazing work. Like you and I were talking just before we started, how you edit your own podcast or your own recordings, which is amazing. I would say, I like to buy back your time. I could pay a VA $8 an hour, and now I have more freedom of time to do
Mhm.
something more important. And so I like to think of it as, my time is worth $1,000 an hour, let's just say.
Sure.
And whatever work I'm doing is that $1,000 an hour work. If it's not, I'm not allowed to do it. And that's the shift in mindset that's allowed me to free up my time to do bigger stuff. Yeah.
We're talking to Tracy Gapin. He is a urologist, in today's Kevin MD article is your medical career a golden cage? Tracy, let's end with some take-home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
Oh, thanks so much. So I'll just tell any doctor out there who's listening, if you're burned out, if you're frustrated, if you hate your life, you're miserable and feel stuck, there is a way out to build a practice and a life that you love. I've done it. I mean, shit, if I can do it, any doctor out there can do it. It is not easy by any means, but it can be done, and it can be incredibly rewarding and fulfilling and give you really the freedom of time and freedom of impact that so many docs are missing.
Tracy, thank you so much for sharing your story time and insight, and thanks again for coming on the show.